Hey, Peace World. Thank you for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. My name is Wood. Please consider subscribing to the channel. If you like the way any of the information is being presented, hit that like button before you get out of here. I'm always interested in hearing everybody's comments. I'm not trying to say I know, I'm the final say on all of the stuff that I talk about. I wanted to come back and follow up on a boxing topic that I dealt with last week, and it's this new film out called Sometimes My Worlds and My Interests Converge. And this was one of those weeks where, I'm an avid boxing fan. I write about boxing a little bit online for a couple of different sites, primarily www.bitedownboxing.com. The It's Always Personal podcast is out there on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. You can find it. But I wanted to, and I'm trying to get the star of this movie and kind of its creator and one of the writers of it. The movie is Catch the Fair One. You can see over my shoulder right there. That is KO Kaylee Reis. The current Unified. I just go Unified. I can't remember exactly which titles she has. I know she doesn't have I think she's WBA and WBO super lightweight champion, fighting on the DAZN app, and has an undisputed fight coming up against the UK Chantel Cameron. So she's very successful, with what she's doing inside the ring. And one message that she's continued to carry with her as women's boxing has picked up, and she's been able to get on bigger stages since a fight against Cecilia Brækhus a few years ago now. I think that might have been one of the last shows on HBO, one of the last boxing shows on HBO, maybe. But since then, she dropped Brækhus, who was who's considered the nickname as the first lady of boxing. She didn't get this rematch that Cecilia Brækhus said on the show on the broadcast that she would get. That never happened, but other opportunities occurred for Reis. And one thing that like I said, that she's kept in the forefront of her appearances is the atrocities that are troubling this country's indigenous people, Native Americans. She's half Native American and Cape Verdean. And she had this Res tour that was going on a couple of years ago. I don't know if that's still active or if the pandemic might have shut that down, but she was doing that to raise awareness on, alcoholism, substance abuse, drug addiction, abductions, kidnapping, missing girls, human trafficking, sex trafficking, all of this stuff that goes unreported. No one looks into it. Law enforcement doesn't care. There's no coverage of it. And, this is just ravaging this community, terrorizing members of this community. And that's been, like I said, she's carried this to the ring with her, to her fight week, her fight week appearances and her social media account. So I didn't realize this movie was coming together, and that it was a legitimate movie, but it is. It's 85 minutes long. It's not going to, it's not an epic. It's not a 2.5 hour movie. There's not a lot of, there's no CGI, no science fiction plot that you can't follow along. It really punches you in the face. It gets started very quickly. Some movies that it's kind of similar to, in my opinion. One that I just remembered right before coming on was Wind River, starring Jeremy Renner, which also dealt with Native American women disappearing and so and sex trafficking, sex work, and all this type of stuff. Out of the Furnace is another one starring Casey Affleck and know why I can't remember my man's name. Well, Christian Bale was in that one. Zoe Saldana, and why can I not think of dude's name? Woody Harrelson. I think Woody Harrelson. A little bit of Bruise, maybe a recent movie from deals with women MMA fighters from Halle Berry that's on Netflix right now. A little bit of that, and then also kind of the grittiness of this one. Maybe a little White Boy Rick. Some of those things come into play, and then music score wise, and like also grittiness. Maybe Sicario. Definitely the if you're familiar with the that real moving, dark, gritty uh score that Sicario was kind of, I think, was one of the first movies I noticed that type of soundtrack on, or that score. So those things come into play. Um, they don't ask. I think it was very smart. This is not trying to downplay or diminish what Kaylee does with this film. You know, her performance is well received from the critics and whatnot, but they don't ask her to do a whole lot. She has a couple of different scenes where she has to do different, get into different parts of the emotional spectrum. She has an, a tenuous relationship with her mother, who doesn't nowadays. She's obviously a fighter. She was in a same-sex relationship. Maybe her mother didn't approve of that. And then, her sister, her younger sister, was obviously going down the straighter path or a more acceptable path to the mother. And so, that's kind of the dynamics in the family. Of course, little sis looked up to big sis in her fighting career. Reese plays a former champion in the movie. And what we find out pretty quickly is that little sis has gone missing. And I think it's been missing for, did they say 2 years? For a while. No law enforcement involved in this movie whatsoever to drive home the point that nobody cares. And these situations occur with very little law enforcement intervention and whatnot. I think one thing that silently kind of plays out is we see that Reese might be willing to take on this pretty one-way voyage or search to try to recover her sister. Is that you find out that she's kind of the cause for it, and she may have been living with the last, except however much time has elapsed. She may be living with the guilt that she didn't leave her her training session when her little sister left, and that's when little sis was taken. Taken is another movie. You can see some elements in here of it, but also in the cast are some veterans that drive home how serious the movie is. I knew Lisa Emery, who plays Darlene on Ozark. Rest in peace. Spoiler right there. But I really was dying to see Lisa Emery in another role because they have her looking pretty beat on pretty rough around the edges on Ozark. And we know how notorious she was on there. And she plays Deborah on here. And I didn't know if she was gonna be, I didn't know what the full scope of the movie was, but I figured I knew she was gonna do something big. And she does have a big moment in here, also involving a rifle. Here, she's plays the wife of actor Kevin Dunn, who's Willie, who is the father that's involved in this operation that is trafficking young women. Willie lives out in some rural areas and whatnot, lives in this palatial estate, and is a well-to-do businessman. And then behind the scenes, he's running this operation using the land and the equipment that he owns to transport these women. And it's just some real seedy stuff. His son is played by Daniel Henshaw. His name is Bobby in the movie. Dunn and Henshaw look like father and son almost, and that they could be father and son in real life. And I thought there might. Oh, and then shout out to Shelley Vincent, who didn't get a lot of credit, also making her box, I mean her silver screen debut. But Shelly Vincent, I don't know if I say show stiller, but her authenticity, grabs your attention. And Shelly is just a very down to earth person, and basically I'm just watching Shelly. I'm not even watching Kaylee's trainer Brick is her name in the flick. So that kind of rounds out most of the cast. There's also this guy named Michael Dreyer as Danny, who's kind of like the first person in the pipeline for getting the young girls off of the streets and putting them into play, so to speak. So that's kind of it, man. What we quickly learn is Brick has been working with Kaylee to basically prepare herself for the worst of outcomes possible, as she's going to go undercover herself and subject herself to herself and her body to whatever, to try to figure out what happened to her sister and hopefully recover and have some happy ending. This movie, I think it's interesting, and I'm cool with how they chose to end it, because I think some of the grittiness that you see in these individuals who are carrying out the trafficking, I think we need to understand what kind of problem that this is, and that while this is a movie, this is also very personal and very painful for Reis, that is happening to her people, her community. Yeah, it's happening to all communities, really. And that's what you're sitting here at the end of this, 85 minutes into this, 70 minutes before the resolution really happens, or the climax really happens. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, like, it's unfathomable that this is all of this stuff is the horrible and the savage shit that a large number of people in this country could do, all to have sex with without even attempting to have a relationship or anything. I mean, this is just to abuse somebody else's body, and all of this risk that this family takes on. This rich dude with these properties and this business, this land, and a shipping company and all of this stuff, and he lives in this huge house with his wife, takes on all this risk to supply men with underage women that they can have their way with. I mean, it's pretty sickening. So I understand kind of what happens to our hero or heroine, why they chose to do it that way. But you do kind of get you have some feeling for Kaylee in the movie, or KO as Brick refers to her. You have some strong, you get some strong attachment to her and her courage, her moxie, how she put herself in this position with no safety net. Nobody knows what she's doing. I mean, she's just vulnerable. She's just completely out there. And one of the things that she's put into the pipeline, basically, she's forced into drug use, some heroin. The guy shoots her up with something, and she's completely, the situation is totally out of all of her MMA and hand-to-hand combat training that she's been doing in the gym, to be injected with this and lose her sense, her bearing and everything, and totally take her guard down, is a shocker. And so then we get to the second half of the movie. One thing that jumps out to you is there's actually a Native American guy with the bad guys who is playing an instrumental role. He's the muscle and does all the dirty work against his own people. That was kind of a tough watch right there. I'm not really gonna give you too many details. I am hoping to speak with Kaylee, maybe on here for a couple of questions at the end of this week, later this week. She told me that she's doing some press this week. The movie did win a couple of awards at the Tribeca Film Festival. and it's doing pretty well. The theater I went to actually ended up a couple of blocks up from Ohio State University at this Gateway Film Center in Columbus that I was not aware of. Not a huge crowd in there, but this is like an independent movie house with multiple cinemas, a kind of smaller seating areas in there, stadium seating though. But it's like for indie films. Some of the trailers that I saw were like projects that I would never even know about, but were pretty interesting. But about five of us total in there. So I was happy to see. I actually tried to talk to one lady. She's like, I didn't know nothing about this movie or who the star is. She said she just checked out the trailer on a screen out in the food area, you know, the opening area where you come in to buy your tickets and some other stuff. She said she watched the trailer in there, wasn't even aware of any of the backstory whatsoever, and just checked it out. And so I was gonna get some audio from her. The other dude was coughing a lot, and I was like, I'm gonna stay away from my man because I don't know what's going on with his health. So I'm gonna stay over here. And then there was another couple. I didn't feel like bothering the couple. But good to see some other people in there supporting the project. Hopefully, you can check it out. Like I said, I, you know, I I'm not the one to tell you everything is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and so and so is a genius. It was brilliant. I'm not gonna give you that with many of my recaps and reviews of anything. But I thought they made it a smart movie. Like I said, she created the story and did some writing or received some writing credits. Director and the guy who did the screenplay is Joseph Kabuta, Vladika. Not all that familiar with him. It was produced by no, Aronofsky is the guy's last name. Let me get that. I've seen his name before. Do they have it on here? Of course not. Damn. They don't have that where I was looking at it. Okay. I can't remember if it's Aronofsky or something like that, but I have seen that producer's name before. Like I said, it's a legitimate movie. You know, it is at limited locations. You can check out the trailer on the article that I wrote for this, my little coverage of it, but you can find it on www.bitedownboxing.com. I put the trailer in there. I mean, if you know how to use the internet, you can find all of this stuff. It's not world breaking, you know, it's crack investigative reporting by myself. But again, man, solid movie, pretty dark and gritty, down to earth. You know, this isn't Angela Jolie or Zoe Saldana at 95 pounds beating up, you know, other special forces guys, and she's not in here with the radio in her ear and a whole bunch of equipment and explosives flat. She's very vulnerable, and she's just out here trying to put it on the line to bring back her baby sister. And then, like I said, in light of all of this, or at the same time, she's drawing attention to a very troubling issue that just continue. We know the Epstein stuff. Like I said, man, to think that people are this down bad that you don't even a rich dude to go into to the local sports bar, throw some money in a young girl, tell her some lies, and just do shit the old fashioned way to do what, you know, to have sex with her. It's like, nah, we skipping all of that. I just want you drugged up, you know, in here getting used and so on and so forth. That's what I like. That's some sick stuff. But shout out to everybody behind the project. Shout out to Kaylee Reis for getting this done. And you know, I wish her all the success with it. And that, you know, it becomes, maybe it's a huge statement in the start to some kind of change with this this horrific, you know, part of our this country's underworld. My name is Wood. Let me get on out of here. Pay me no mind, sports and entertainment. 5 stars or best, star rating out of 10, 2 thumbs up. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the story. Like I said, they didn't try to do too much. Some of the performances were pretty great, and it ends in a way that was provocative for me. I didn't see that coming. So, get on out of here. Peace.